Welcome to the sewing workshop. My name is Ola Sukomi and I will be taking you guys through the process of making a double welt pocket. The tinier the welt pocket is, the beautiful it comes out. And if you're making a suit, this is how tiny your double welt pocket has to be in order to give you that beauty that you actually need. I will be taking you guys through the process of doing this step by step. You can do it on a suit, or if you're making a normal senator and you just want to make a kind of pocket, or on your back trouser. Anywhere you can actually fit this double welt pocket on. So without further ado, I will be taking you guys through the process of doing this. So make sure you give the video a like and make sure you subscribe if you're yet subscribed. However, at the end of this video, I will be sharing an important information with you guys that might be something you're really waiting for. So let's get straight into the video. When it comes to making a double welt pocket, you have to have an accurate and precise measurement, right? And a very accurate and precise measurement. So my total wideness of my pocket is going to be at 6 inches. 6 inches. So I cut this fabric at 7 inches, which is the fabric for the pocket front. I cut this at 7 inches, right? And the wideness is 7 inches and the height is at 8 inches in total, so that your hand will be able to go inside, right? And here I cut this one also at 4 inches by 7 inches. You can see that. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to apply an interfacing to both sides. But before you do that, make sure you're working with the right side and the wrong side of the fabric. So this is the wrong side and this is also the wrong side. I'm just going to chalk it. You can see that. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to apply my interfacing. This is a very light interfacing, not too strong and not too light. It's like a medium, and I'm going to place it at the edge of the pocket itself. I'm going to place it at the edge, then we can do our measurements. So this is what you're going to be having here. You see that? And I did it on the both sides. So right now, in order to apply our measurements, I will be using a 1/4 of an inch. A 1/4 of an inch at the side, at each of the side. So I want you guys to pay attention at this place. So here I'll be using a 1/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to measure a 1/4 of an inch. Just right here, I'll mark a 1/4 of an inch at this place. You see that? So in between the 1/4 of an inch is 1/3, right? That's a 1/4 of an inch right there. You can see. So I'm going to mark a 1/4 of an inch here also. I'll mark a 1/4 of an inch here. I just want to mark the 1/4 of an inch first so that you're going to understand what I'm about to do. So now I'm going to connect those marks together. You can see that. I'm just going to make a straight line on that mark or straight down. You can see. So you can see what our line is going to look like. So in between that line and the edge of the fabric, I'm going to use 1/4 of an inch. That means I'm going to divide that particular line into that particular space into 2, right? So that's 1/3 of an inch. You can see. Oh, I mean like 1/3 of a quarter. That's 1 and 3, right? I'm going to mark that place also. And I'm going to connect that line together. So now we're having 2 lines on that edge. This second line that I just marked now is the one we are going to stitch to the fabric. So I want you guys to pay attention very, very well. This is the one I'm going to stitch to the fabric. You can see that. So here, after you have this, you see we have 2 lines right here. So I'm going to fold it at the first line. I'm going to fold the first line inside, right? That's the 1/4 of an inch that I fold inside, and I'm going to iron it down. You can see that. Just iron it very well. Make sure it stays firm. So you can see what we have here. You can see how sharp that edge is. So now what you're going to be stitching is going to be that first line. And you're going to do the same thing on this one also. You're going to mark your 2 lines there and you're going to fold it. So this is what we're going to be having on both sides. Exactly this. So now on our fabric, right? on our fabric, on your chest or wherever you want to make the pocket, or on your trouser, either way, I will be marking the exact sides in which I want to place my pocket. So this is the side. So in between that line, that will be where my pocket is going to be. That's 6 inches. So in between that line, I'm going to make a straight line to connect the two lines together. So that's exactly where my pocket is going to be, on that particular place. So that will be in between your darts if you're making a trouser. If you're making a trouser, that will be in between your darts, and that will be before your dart if you're making the side of a suit, the welt pocket on a suit, right? So the next thing I'm going to do now is to place this just exactly like this, and there will be 1/2 inches at the side, which is for the sewing allowance. You know, I cut 7 of the fabric, right? And I'm just going to mark that side. That's where the stitch is going to end. You can see. And here from that line, I'm going to mark my 6 inches. And that's where the stitch is going to start. You can see that. It will end here and it's going to start here. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other fabric also. So I'm going to stitch the first line, right? You can see that. Just mark that place. That's where it's going to end. It's going to start from, I'm going to start my stitch from here all the way down to this side. You can see that. And I'm going to do the same thing on this one also. Mark your end, your starting point and your ending point also. And on the fabric, before we go to the sewing machine, I will have to add an interfacing to the back of the fabric itself. But you know, if you're making this on suits, you would have like already add an interfacing to your entire fabric, right? So you don't need to apply this to your suit. But for a senator or for a trouser, you need to like apply an interfacing to the back of where you're going to sew. So just apply an interfacing, make sure it is firm. And after you apply the interfacing, this is what the front is going to look like. You can see it's a little bit firm. So after sewing it, this is what we're going to be. Let me bring the camera closer. You can see like at that edge, I did not stitch past that line. Make sure your stitch actually end at the same line. That's why I'm using the yellow fabric, so that you can, yellow thread, so that you can see it clearly, right? So now what I'll be doing now is to simply cut in between. I'm going to cut this side. You can see that, and I'm going to make a notch at both sides. You can see that. So I'm going to lift the fabric up a little bit. You can see, make sure your scissors is sharp when you're doing this part. You must not overcut that part, right? Make sure you're cutting up to that thread. Make sure you're cutting up to that thread, a particular thread right there. I'm going to make a notch. You can see that. And also at this place, you're going to do the same thing. Make sure you're cutting. You can see that. Make sure you don't cut above that, your lock stitch. Yeah, this is what we're going to be having. And you're going to do the same thing on this side also. Just cut it. Make sure you're paying attention to what you're doing. You're going to make your cut at that side. Just like that. Just like that. You see that? And this side also. You can see what I just did. Just like that. Make sure you don't cut above that thread, because if you make a mistake here, your mistake is like permanent. It's crazy. You have to like extend the welt pocket. I've made that mistake before. I'm not perfect, but I've been doing it over and over and over and over, so I can simply overcome that now. But in case you make a mistake, just do it again. Yeah, don't give up. All right, so this is what we're going to be having. You can see that edge. So when I turn this to the front now, you can see what my front panel is going to look like. Let me place this very well. Just align it very well. Make sure it's relaxed. You can see what my front panel is looking. So you can see those tiny lap Let me zoom in closer. Let me zoom in closer. I want you guys to see what is going to look. It's still rough though, I know that, but I want you to see what you're going to be having and how you're going to give it a good ironing. Let me zoom in. Okay, yeah, this is better. So you can see how clean this the kiss are, like the fabric kissing one another. You can see that all this your edge that are rough, you just need an ironing on that side. So give it a good ironing. Take your time to iron. Make sure those sides are balanced. You can see what I'm doing. Take your time. And on this other tip side, just push in that cut. Just push it in. You can see that. Just push it in. You can see what I'm doing. Take your time. You don't need to rush at this area. Take your time and make sure you balance it very well before you iron those edges. So iron those edges, iron it all to the down part. Take your time. You can see what I'm doing. You can see that. Take your time. Make sure you're pushing this inside. It's not supposed to be outside in any way. So when you iron it, it's supposed to be down permanently. You can see that. You can see that. So the next thing I'm going to do now is on this back side, you should also iron this back side and make sure it is very, very balanced. Let me zoom backward. Okay, so let me iron that place. So the next thing I'm going to do now, whatsoever you're doing, make sure you're closing that gap in between the two fabric. Make sure there's no space. Whatsoever you're doing, make sure you're closing that gap. So I'll take this to the sewing machine now and stitch that edge, this tiny dart in which we cut on the pocket. I'm going to stitch that to the fabric, stitch it from the inside and here also. I'll hold the two together and run a stitch to the pockets. So let me do that, and after that stitch, this is what the edge is going to look like. I use a yellow thread because I want it to be very obvious and I want you guys to see it clearly. So you can see both sides. I only stitch both sides. You can see that. See the result we're having. You see it from here and you see it from here also. Just like that, I stitched it. And after stitching it, this is what we're going to be having in the front. You can see how sharp the double pocket is looking. You can see how sharp that is. Take your time and give it a good ironing. Make sure it is balanced. You can see what my ironing look like. You can see what I'm having. You can see that. So the next thing I'm going to do now is simple. I will be covering the back. So I'll be using exactly the same fabric. This is the fabric I'll be using. You see that? So I'm just going to place at the back and run a stitch. But in case you're using a lining, right? In case you're using a lining, all you have to do is very simple. At the place in which at your opening, you're going to add at least 2 inches fabric on top of the lining so that whenever you're wearing it, it's not going to be obvious, right? You're going to cut exactly the same fabric you're using at the main trouser or the main fabric, so that it won't be obvious in the front. That's why you have to add an interface, a fabric on your lining to cover that particular place. So after that, all I'll be doing now is to run a stitch all the way from the top all the way to the down. Is either square or 4 corner or a curve. I'm just going to run a curve, and after that I'm going to stitch the front. I just run a stitch first so that I'm going to take you guys through another step, something very important at this place. I'm just going to iron that one. You can see. So here, before I close that upper part, you need to pay attention here. Before you close that upper part, take your time to make sure each of the pockets are actually very close to one another. Very, very, very close. Let me zoom in. You can see that. Make sure they are like kissing very well, that there's no space in between. Use your hand to hold it down from the back. You can see that. Use your hand to hold it down. After they are very, very close to one another, use your hand to hold it down from the back. Then hold both sides and take it to the sewing machine to lock it. So after locking it, this is the result we are going to be having. And after the result, I'm going to share the information I said I will be sharing with you guys in this video. So this is what our result is going to look like. I believe you guys love it. This is like very clean actually. If you like the video, make sure you smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are yet to subscribe to the channel. So I hope you. So I make a full course on how to get into mass production of joggers, of shorts, and I make a course for you guys in case you are interested. And inside the course, you're going to get access to the number of where you can get a bundle of this, or even if you just want to buy a yard, all of this fabric. I'm going to share with you the contact of the person that sell the fabric, the contact of the person that sell the press buttons and everything I use in order to make my mass production. In case you are interested, a link will be in the description below. I think this is the next step we are supposed to take as an African now in order to change these sectors of fashion. See, the Chinese they've taken over the market, and in order to take it back, we just need to start producing. That's why I think this will be interested, and I think if you're interested, you should click the link in the description below to get access. Inside the course, I share all the information and the contact of all that you need in order to get into mass production. That's about it. So if you like this, the link will be in the description below, and we will see you guys in my next video. The full course, I share how many materials in which you're going to need to make 100 pieces, right, inside the course. So if you get the understanding of the material you need in order to make 100 pieces, then if you're making 1,000 pieces, all you just need is just to multiply the cost of making 100 pieces, the cost of material and everything together. It's as simple as that. So that's about it.